Who was your saddest celebrity encounter? My brother met Gene Simmons backstage at a show he was playing in. Gene complimented my brother highly on his guitar playing but then said too bad you'll never make it and just walked away. I had an entirely eyeball body language conversation with Chris Pontius in a guitar center. He was playing an acoustic. I saw him. He looked at me. I realized who he was. He saw that I recognized him and he gave me a look that was so sad. Like, please don't announce to the world that I'm here. I nodded and he smiled and looked relieved. The end. My mom found Paris Hilton incognito in an airport, came to find me, brought me to a tiny lady in a hoodie and big sunglasses in the middle of the airport, goes hi are you Paris Hilton, then pushed me in front of her and said here, say hi to my son like I was a weird birthday gift or something. She said sup. I said sup, then she did this weird little laugh. Then my mom goes okay bye. That was my sad and awkward meeting with Paris Hilton in an airport. Crap, at least she said sup, lol. I sat next to Kevin Spacey on the tube when I was in London with my dad. My dad was so pumped that he was next to Kevin Spacey. He's a huge fan, but he didn't want to ask him for a picture while we were on a crowded train, so he just let him be. He was just happy to have seen him. Then this guy randomly shouts from the other side of the train, hey Kevin, how's the acting going? And everyone's faces turned to him. Felt so bad for Kevin Spacey. No one would take their eyes off him and everyone was taking photos and whatnot. Just felt sorry for the guy. He looked like he had just come back from a run or something and wasn't wanting to be recognized. Can't imagine living my life constantly trying to avoid being recognized. He'd probably just come back from pushing some poor girl in front of a train. I met Hulk Hogan when I was 4, late-ish 80s, at some wrestling thing in Dallas. All I remember is that my dad got his attention as he was walking toward the ring, and when he came around he stuck out this giant hand and said put it there. Darling, I recognized him but he was scary, so I peed my pants and cried. I guess it's obvious now that he wanted a handshake or a high five or something? No idea. Anyway, scared the pee out of me. Dude is huge. Betty White. It was right after the Golden Girls and Golden Palace had ended. Her career was not in the best place at the time. I was at the Beverly Center in Los Angeles and saw a poster promoting Betty White signing her latest book about how much she loves animals. I liked the Golden Girls, so I thought I would swing by the bookstore to take a gander at Betty White. It was so sad. I'll always remember she was sitting alone at a big table with a stack of books in front of her. People were in the bookstore shopping but no one was buying her book or really acknowledging her. She just sat there, pen in hand, waiting. She would occasionally wipe off some imaginary dust to look busy. I'm getting the chills just remembering it. Of course, I was such a self-involved college kid that I just stared at her from far away. I should have just gone up and talked to her. I was a little kid in the 70s. Like pretty much every little boy, I thought Evel Knieval was a serious badass. When I was about 7, I was in the airport with my mom and her boyfriend and a friend of mine. My mother's boyfriend told us that Evel was in one of the lounges. He was sitting in a back corner, drinking a glass of some kind of booze and engulfed in a cloud of cigarette smoke. We both approached him excitedly and asked for his autograph. He was obviously drunk, but he picked up a couple of cocktail napkins and scratched out his signature on both of them. Then he looked at us and said, "Before I give you these, I'm going to teach you something." My friend and I looked at each other, totally starstruck and grinning like idiots. Evel proceeded to tap both of us on the arm. "Does that hurt?" he asked. We both shook our heads and said no. Then he poked us lightly in the chest. "Does that hurt?" again. We both said no in unison. Then he made fists out of both hands with the middle knuckle sticking out and brought them down sharply and simultaneously, protruding knuckle first, onto both of our heads. "Does that hurt?" he asked. Neither of us could really answer. I was holding back tears from the pain. He waited a few seconds and said, "That's why you wear a safety helmet," and handed us the napkins. Evel Knieval punched my friend and me in the head when we were 7. That has to be the most drunk 70s attempt to teach kids about safety that I've ever heard. Not me, but my friend's sister-in-law saw Jack Black walking down the street and eventually they crossed paths, and her, not wanting to pass up the chance at meeting him, approached him. She said something like, "Is it really you?" and he said yes. Then she said, "This is so weird, it's really you," and he said, "It's not weird for me." Then he asked her where she was going and she said she was going to the weed dispensary, thinking he might find it funny, but he turned a bit sullen and said he was going to visit his mom in the hospital. She said she wouldn't bother him for a picture and he thanked her and left. 1993, the Wetlands Bar, Hippie Central, in NYC. River Phoenix's band was playing, and he was clearly tripping balls. Sample between song banter, smoosh his crappy woolen hat around on his head silently for 30 seconds. Then, "This is called a Lou hat. It's called that because Lou makes them." Okay, show thankfully ends. He wanders off stage and is standing by me, vaguely looking off into the distance. Me, Jesus, man, how many hits are you on? Him, hits? What's that? Me, acid, dude, I'm impressed you were able to play at all. Him, or, no, man, I don't do drugs. Few months later, he is dead on an LA sidewalk from a speedball overdose. He wanders off stage and is standing by me. Nice reference. Organize a good sized Comic Con, so I've worked with quite a few, but the saddest was really subtle. Peter Mayhew, Chewbacca, was in the green room for lunch on the second day. He looks very tired and is almost totally wheelchair bound because of his terrible joint problems. I'm sitting across from him while we eat and his assistant asks if his hand is feeling alright to sign more autographs. Terrible arthritis. He closes his eyes and nods his head and whispers out, "How much longer will this go today?" To which his assistant delicately replies, "Just 5 more hours." And he whimpers a little and sheds a few tears as they wheel him away from the table and back out to the fans. The saddest part is that he's the nicest guy and never denies a fan while he's at the con and always smiles even though he's in loads of physical pain. Give the guy a freaking stamp pad to use. Jeez. He's definitely a champ for that, but there has to be a way to help him do what he wants for the fans, but also mitigate the literal pain of signing autographs. Seeing a movie in Ottawa with my mother as a child, and Tom Green was behind us all alone, looking grayish. My mom told me not to bother him because Drew Barrymore had just dumped him. Good advice. He said in a WTF interview recently that people still ask him about Drew Barrymore on the street nearly every day of his life. That must suck. People are stupid. I met George R. Martin at the Blaze Pizza in Evanston a couple of months back when he was in town to accept an award from Northwestern University. At the time, I was listening to the audiobook of A Clash of Kings, and he very excitedly told me, "You've got a ways to go to catch up." When I told him that I've already read what he's published 3 times, and I'm listening to the audiobook as a new way to experience the story, he just kind of deflated. He let out a big sigh and just said, "Yeah, I need to finish the next book. People won't stop bothering me about it." I had waited an hour and a half in line for a ride at Great Adventure, was in the front seat line so the wait was even longer. Finally, I was next in line, watched gleefully as my train pulled in, and Chris Rock and his family come walking up from the exit and I given my spot, without waiting at all. I was both sad and mad and have held a grudge against him ever since. A buddy of mine was a student at the University of Michigan while Michael Phelps was training there under Bob Bowman. He and a few friends were walking outside the natatorium and ran into Phelps, who was eating a granola bar while heading into practice. They were pretty awestruck and headed over in hopes of a photo or. Phelps quickly finished his granola bar in order to shake my buddy's hand. As they were shaking hands he transferred the wrapper to my buddy, leaned in, whispered, "You can keep that," and promptly walked off. Honestly, that would make me laugh and I'd feel like that's about what I deserved for interrupting a dude's snack. Joaquin Phoenix and the drummer from the Raconteurs once came into the bar I was hanging out at. This was post crazy beard phase. He wasn't acting weird or anything, but a bunch of girls I guess he knew came in and they were all mingling, having a good time. I thought it would be fun to buy him, Joaquin, a round of whatever he was drinking. The bartender served it to him, turned around and pointed to me, and Joaquin looked dumbfounded, like totally flattered. He bowed and mouthed, "Thank you so much." I felt kinda dumb for doing it. Later on I found out, from the bartender, that he was acting like a madman. Not a total D-bag but just kinda wild, irritating folks, walking in front of cars in the street and being loud. When I asked for my tab, which had been pretty hefty, the bartender told me that he had picked up my bill, and all my friends' bills as well. So, crazy weirdo or not, I'll always remember that kindness, as sad as it was to see him drunkenly irritating the F out of people. Freaking Joaquin Phoenix bought my tab. I got cock-blocked by Brad Pitt. I was an extra in World War Z and I met this girl there and we were talking and all was great until one time Brad Pitt walks by, was very friendly to her, totally blanked me. His stunt double was a cool dude though. I've met Conan O'Brien twice. The first time was awesome. My wife and I were visiting NYC for our anniversary and went to see his show. Back when he was still doing late night at NBC, the guy that warmed the crowd up before Conan came out asked if it was anyone's birthday or anniversary, and I spoke up and said we were visiting for ours. When Conan came out, he came right up to us to shake our hands and give us a little present. A few years later, we went to go see his show when he was touring in between The Tonight Show mess and his TBS show. We were taking a walk around the theater right when his bus happened to pull up, and he came to meet us and a few other fans that were there at the time. He was so visibly exhausted and gaunt looking. After everything that he'd gone through, I could totally understand. He still talked with everyone for a few minutes and went on to do a fun show with his band later that night though. This is more embarrassing for me. 4 AM in an airport, I ran into Adam Savage. Strike 1. Don't talk to anyone in an airport at 4 AM. They're just as delirious and tired as you are. Strike 2. Don't frick up and say his co-host's name when you try to say hi. Bonus. He tweeted about 5 minutes later complaining about idiots in airports trying to say hi by calling him Jamie. Learn from my mistake. Nichelle Nichols. Met her at a con literally a matter of hours after Leonard Nimoy passed away last year. You could tell she wasn't all there in her panel, because her answers to any question would quickly turn into ramblings about her ventures in high school and her early singing career. I'm not sure if it was her age, the grief, or some combination of both, but it was really depressing. I saw Stephen King while getting some food in Exeter, NH once. I didn't walk up to him and saw anything, but I saw 2 or 3 people following him trying to get him to talk to them, which looked annoying to deal with. Poor guy. I don't know if anyone outside the UK will know who this is, but I performed at a festival where one of my childhood heroes, Craig Charles, was Jing. I was a massive Red Dwarf fan, so I was so excited to meet him. Seeing him backstage, he was just this middle-aged guy in sunglasses and a leather jacket trying to hang out with all these young cool bands who didn't know or care who he was. That was kind of sad. Saw his jazz band perform in Bristol a couple of years back. He was so fricked up he attacked a poster of himself, then a bouncer. Was a weird night. I was on Jeopardy a few years ago, and was pretty disappointed to learn that the only time you see Alex Trebek is while you're on stage taping the show. He's just very dry and straightforward, not rude, but extremely businesslike. Richard Kiel aka Jaws from the 007 films. It was a shock to see how deteriorated he looked, riding a scooter because his legs were done, hands shaking, half blind, still signed every DVD and posed for every photo. Passed away 2 weeks after that. I also pee off Joe Edgerton because he didn't like my question, but that's more funny than sad. Quite a few of the guys I work with on events all knew him quite well. He literally kept working until the day he died because it made him happy. So yeah, while it's quite sad to see someone like that, you would have been a big part of why he never wanted to stop, and I think that's quite a nice thing. Aziz Ansari hit on me years ago and I was too starstruck to remember how to talk. Marion. This is a money dog. Upvote in the next 24 hours and money will come your way. If you're new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.